There are moments in life when the world feels like it's caving in. Someone you love simply vanishes without a word, without explanation, as if you never existed in their life. And then in the deafening silence that remains, your soul whispers a question that echoes through the ages: why did they just disappear? But what if I told you that this silent departure isn't a cruel abandonment by fate, but rather a sacred language the soul uses to awaken us to truths only understood when we look beyond the veil of physical reality? Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, revealed that nothing in life happens by chance, especially when it comes to the deepest encounters of the heart, and today you'll uncover the hidden spiritual reason behind this experience that may be tearing your soul apart right now. When someone disappears from our lives without explanation, we're not just facing a common relationship ending. We're standing before a cosmic mirror reflecting ancestral patterns, soul contracts written long before we were born, and lessons our consciousness needs to learn to evolve. Edgar Cayce taught that each soul crossing our path carries a specific mission, and sometimes that mission is precisely this: to appear intensely in our lives and then disappear, leaving us with a wound that is in fact a gateway to our deepest spiritual transformation. Think for a moment about that person who vanished from your life. Remember how they arrived. It was probably through an impressive synchronicity, wasn't it? Perhaps you met at the exact moment you most needed companionship, or when you were going through a phase of deep questioning about your life. This wasn't a coincidence. According to Cayce's teachings, these souls approach us when we are vibrationally ready to receive certain lessons, even if our conscious mind doesn't yet understand what that lesson is. Their arrival in your life was like a lightning bolt illuminating dark corners of your soul you didn't even know existed. Suddenly, you felt complete in a way you'd never experienced before. There was an inexplicable familiarity, as if you had known each other for much longer than you actually had. This happens because, according to Cayce, our souls recognize other souls with whom we've shared experiences in past lives. This instant recognition, this feeling of being home when near the person, isn't just chemistry or compatibility, it's soul memory. But then, at the height of this magical connection, when you began to believe you had finally found your person, the unthinkable happened: they disappeared. No warnings, no arguments, no attempts to resolve conflicts. They simply left, leaving you with a sense of emptiness that feels greater than any pain you've ever felt before. And it's precisely this intensity of pain that gives us the first clue about the true spiritual purpose of this experience. Edgar Cayce taught us that the emotional intensity of an experience is directly proportional to its value for soul growth. The deeper the wound, the greater the potential for transformation it carries. When someone disappears from our lives so abruptly, we're not just losing a person, we're being confronted with deep layers of ourselves that need healing. Their absence becomes a mirror reflecting our abandonment patterns, our oldest fears, our limiting beliefs about love and worthiness. Now pause for a moment and reflect: how many times in your life have you felt this same pain of abandonment? Perhaps with different intensities, but this pattern of important people simply disappearing from your life isn't something new, is it? If you're honest with yourself, you'll probably be able to draw a line connecting this current experience with similar situations you've lived through in the past. This isn't a curse or bad luck, it's a karmic pattern repeating itself until you learn the lesson your soul needs to learn. Cayce revealed in his readings that we often carry traumas and patterns from past lives that manifest in our current relationships. Perhaps in a previous incarnation you were the one who abandoned someone without explanation. Perhaps you caused the same pain you're feeling now. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, offers us the opportunity to experience the other side of the coin, not as punishment, but as a way to develop deeper compassion and understanding. Or perhaps the pattern is even more subtle. It may be that in past lives you developed such a deep fear of being abandoned that unconsciously, you attract people who validate that belief. Your soul, trying to heal this ancestral wound, creates situations where you need to face this fear head-on, to finally transcend it. The person who disappeared isn't the problem. They are merely the instrument the universe used to bring to the surface something that was already within you, waiting to be healed. But there's an even deeper layer to this experience that few understand. According to Edgar Cayce, there are souls who make specific contracts before incarnating. Some of these souls agree to play challenging roles in each other's lives, not out of malice, but out of love. It's a kind of love so elevated that it's willing to be misunderstood so that the other soul can grow. Imagine for a moment that before you were born, your soul met the soul of this person who disappeared, and you made an agreement. Perhaps they agreed to appear in your life at the exact moment you most needed to feel loved, to then disappear at the exact moment you needed to learn to love yourself. Does it seem cruel? Only when we look with the eyes of the human personality. When we look with the eyes of the soul, we see an act of unconditional love. This person may have agreed to bear the weight of being seen as the villain in your story, so that you could discover your own strength. They may have accepted being misunderstood, so that you could learn that your happiness cannot depend on anyone but yourself. It's a spiritual sacrifice few souls are willing to make, and one that's rarely recognized for what it truly is. And perhaps that's exactly why they had to disappear without explanation, because if they had tried to explain, if they had given logical reasons, you would have tried to convince them to stay. You would have tried to fix it, negotiate, change things. But the universe knew you needed to go through this experience of abandonment to discover that you are whole on your own. The explanation would have prevented the healing process that could only happen in their absence. Think about how many times you've tried to rationally understand why someone who claimed to love you was able to simply vanish. You've reviewed conversations, analyzed signs, searched for clues. But the truth is, some departures cannot be understood by the mind. They can only be felt by the soul, and the soul understands that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone go, even if it causes temporary pain. Now I want to pause this conversation to invite you to something very special. If this message is touching your heart in a way you didn't expect, if you're feeling that these words are awakening something deep within you, I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because what we're sharing here isn't just content. It's a journey of spiritual awakening based on the deepest teachings humanity has ever received. And I promise that every video we post here will help you understand the mysteries of your soul and find peace even in the most challenging situations. Your soul deserves this companionship, this guidance, this embrace. So hit that button now, because together, we will unravel the secrets that can transform your life forever. Continuing our journey of understanding, you need to understand that the pain you're feeling isn't just about the person who left. It's about all the times you've been abandoned, rejected, or felt unloved. It's an ancestral pain that has finally found an opportunity to surface and be healed. The person who disappeared was just the catalyst, the event that opened the emotional floodgates so you could finally confront and heal wounds you may have carried for many lifetimes. Edgar Cayce always emphasized that our relationships are mirrors. Each person who enters our lives reflects aspects of ourselves that we need to see, understand, or heal. The person who disappeared from your life isn't just showing their own limitations, they're reflecting something in you that needs attention. Perhaps it's your tendency to lose yourself in another, to make someone else's happiness more important than your own. Perhaps it's your belief that you're not worthy of unconditional love. Notice how intensely you connected with this person. It was probably a connection that consumed your energy, your thoughts, your life. You may have become a version of yourself that you thought they would like better. You may have ignored your own dreams to support theirs. You may have silenced your own voice to avoid conflict. And when they disappeared, you didn't just lose them, you lost the version of yourself you had created to please them. But here's the deeper revelation: the person you became to win and keep their love wasn't your true essence. It was a mask, a performance based on the fear of not being enough as you really are. Their disappearance forced you to confront that mask and question, who am I when I'm not trying to be who someone else wants me to be? This is one of the most painful, but also most liberating lessons a soul can learn. Because when you truly understand that you were loved for an edited version of yourself, you begin to question whether that was really love. And when you question that, you open space for something much greater, the possibility of being loved exactly as you are. Without masks, without performances, without the need to diminish yourself to fit into someone else's emotional world. This person's absence is teaching you about presence, your own presence. How often have you truly been present with yourself? How often have you honored your own feelings, your own desires, your own needs. The likelihood is that you were so focused on being present for them that you forgot to be present for yourself. Edgar Cayce taught us that we can only truly give to others what we already have within ourselves. If you were seeking in this person something you weren't cultivating in you, be it self-love, validation, a sense of purpose, or wholeness, you were, unknowingly, placing on them a responsibility that wasn't theirs. You were expecting them to fill voids that only you could fill, and perhaps that's exactly why they had to leave. Not because they didn't love you, but because true love sometimes means refusing to be the remedy for someone else's pain. True love sometimes means forcing the beloved to find their own healing, their own wholeness, their own strength. It's a kind of love that the human mind rarely understands, but that the soul recognizes as being of the highest vibration. Think about the synchronicities that occurred during the time you were together. Cayce always said the universe speaks to us through signs, and relationships are full of them. Perhaps there were moments when you sensed something wasn't right, but you chose to ignore it because you didn't want to face the possibility of loss. Maybe she showed signs that she was struggling internally, but you interpreted them as being about external circumstances. The truth is, people often disappear because they're fighting internal battles they don't know how to share. They might be facing their own karmic patterns, their own wounds from past lives, their own fears of intimacy and commitment. The disappearance isn't necessarily about you, it's about their inability to cope with the intensity of what they were feeling. According to Cayce's teachings, some souls aren't yet ready for deep relationships because they have inner work to do alone. They may feel an intense connection with you, but at the same time realize they're not emotionally or spiritually equipped to honor that connection in the way it deserves. The disappearance, in this context, can be an act of honesty, even if it feels like cowardice. But there's an even deeper possibility that needs to be considered. What if this person didn't disappear permanently, but only temporarily? What if you are soulmates who need to go through cycles of separation and reunion so that you both can grow? Cayce spoke of cyclical relationships, where souls meet, separate to work on individual lessons, and then reunite on a higher level of consciousness. If that's the case, the current separation isn't an end, but a necessary interval. A time for both of you to heal the wounds that made the relationship impossible before. A time for you both to become the most evolved versions of yourselves, capable of creating something far more beautiful and lasting together than was possible before. This doesn't mean you should wait around or live in expectation of a return. It means you should use this time of separation to become the most complete, happy and fulfilled person you can be. Because if there's a reunion, you want it to be between two whole people, not two desperate halves searching for completeness in each other. The pain you're feeling now is a necessary part of this process of becoming whole. It's the pain of birth, not of a child, but of a new version of yourself. When a woman is in labor, she can't avoid the pain, but she can choose to work with it instead of against it. The same applies to the emotional pain you're feeling. You can fight it, resist it, try to avoid it, or you can allow it to do its transformative work. Edgar Cayce always emphasized that unprocessed pain becomes karma, but pain that is felt completely, accepted, and integrated becomes wisdom. The choice is yours. You can allow this experience to close you off to love, or you can allow it to open you up to a more mature, more conscious, more genuine love. Notice how you're different since this person disappeared. You're probably more introspective, more questioning, more aware of the patterns that repeat in your life. You may be feeling an urgency to understand not only what happened, but who you really are when all the masks fall away. This urgency isn't despair, it's awakening. Your soul is using this experience to awaken you to truths you hadn't yet understood about yourself. Maybe you're discovering you're stronger than you thought, that you can survive pains you thought would destroy you. Maybe you're realizing that your happiness can't depend on anyone but yourself. Maybe you're beginning to understand that you are complete exactly as you are, and that anyone who enters your life should be a complement, not a completion. These are lessons that can't be learned through books or lectures. They can only be integrated through lived experience, through felt and processed pain, through direct confrontation with our deepest fears. The person who disappeared from your life gave you this gift, even if it was unintentionally. They forced you to find inner resources you didn't even know you possessed. Now I want you to consider a perspective that may completely change how you see this situation. What if instead of focusing on what you lost, you started focusing on what you gained? You gained awareness of patterns that repeated in your life. You gained emotional strength you didn't have before. You gained clarity on what you truly want and need in a relationship. You gained freedom from a dynamic that, however pleasurable, may not have been the healthiest for your growth. What if this person hadn't disappeared? Would you be living a limited version of yourself for the rest of your life? What if your relationship, however intense, was preventing both of you from becoming the people your souls came here to be? Sometimes the universe temporarily separates us from the people we love, not because we don't deserve love, but because we deserve even greater love. A love that's only possible when we become complete within ourselves. Cayce often spoke of the concept of divine timing. He'd say the universe has a perfect schedule for our lives, and that what seems like tragedy in the moment is often a necessary recalibration to align us with our greater purpose. The person who left may have done so because, on a soul level, they knew you weren't ready yet. Not ready to love each other, you already did that, but to build something lasting and evolving together. If you can accept this perspective, anger and resentment begin to transform into gratitude. Not gratitude for the pain, but gratitude for the opportunity for growth that the pain brought. Gratitude for having known such a profound love, even if temporary. Gratitude for being forced to confront and heal aspects of yourself that might have remained unconscious your whole life. This gratitude isn't something you can force. It arises naturally when you stop resisting what happened and begin to look for the deeper meaning of the experience. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim of cruel circumstances and start seeing yourself as a courageous soul who chose to incarnate, to learn specific lessons, even painful ones. And here's something that might bring even more peace to your heart. If you truly have a soul connection, if you're truly significant to each other on a spiritual level, then this separation isn't final. You may reunite in this life, after you've both grown and healed what you needed to heal, or you may reunite in a future incarnation, when you're ready to live together what wasn't possible now. But most importantly, regardless of whether or not there's a physical reunion, the soul connection remains. True love transcends the physical form, transcends the presence or absence of the person. If you truly loved each other, that love became a permanent part of who you are. No one can take that away from you, not even the person who left. Their physical absence doesn't erase the spiritual presence they left in your life. The lessons you learned, the growth you experienced, the expanded capacity to love you developed, it all remains. You are not the same person you were before they entered your life, and that will never change, regardless of whether they return or not. That's the true magic of soul encounters. They transform us permanently. Even when the person is gone, something of them remains integrated within us forever. Not as a dependency or attachment, but as an expansion of consciousness, an amplification of our capacity to love and be loved. And perhaps that's exactly what your soul needs to understand now, that you haven't lost anything that was truly yours. The love you shared didn't go away with them, it became part of you. The happiness you felt beside them wasn't borrowed, it was born from within you, and therefore remains available to you, regardless of their presence. When you truly integrate this understanding, something magical happens. You stop missing them in a desperate way, and begin to feel gratitude for having been blessed with such a profound connection. You stop feeling rejected, and start feeling chosen by the universe to live a love experience that few have the courage to experience, even knowing it might be temporary. And then you realize the question isn't why did they leave me, but rather what did this experience come to teach me about myself? And when you make that shift in perspective, the whole situation transforms. The pain doesn't disappear immediately, but it gains meaning. The emptiness doesn't magically fill, but it becomes a sacred space where something new can be born. That something new is the most authentic and powerful version of yourself. It's you without masks, without fears, without the need to diminish yourself to be loved. It's you knowing you are complete, valuable, and worthy of love exactly as you are. It's you capable of loving without losing yourself, of surrendering without annulling yourself, of being vulnerable without becoming dependent. And when you become that person, something interesting happens. You stop attracting people who need to disappear from your life to teach you lessons. You start attracting people who are ready to stay, grow, and build something beautiful with you. Because you're no longer vibrating at the frequency of abandonment, but at the frequency of completeness. This doesn't mean you'll never face challenges in relationships again. It means you'll face them from a place of strength, not fear. It means you'll choose partners based on genuine compatibility, not on the need to fill inner voids. It means you'll be able to love deeply without losing yourself in the process. And maybe, just maybe, when you reach this place of completeness and authenticity, the person who left will notice the transformation and be drawn back into your life. But if that happens, it will be a reunion between two whole people, not between two desperate halves. It will be based on conscious choice, not unconscious need. It will be sustained by mature love, not destructive passion. Or maybe they won't come back, and that will be perfect too, because you will have learned that your happiness doesn't depend on anyone's return. You will have discovered that you are capable of creating a full and meaningful life, with or without them, and that discovery is more valuable than any relationship that depends on your incompleteness to exist. Healing isn't linear. There will be days when you feel strong and grateful for all the growth. There will be others when the ache in your heart is intense, and you question if all this learning was worth the pain. Both states are valid and necessary. Healing happens in waves, not a straight line. Be kind to yourself in this process. Don't force forgiveness before you're ready. Don't pressure yourself to feel gratitude before you fully process the pain. Honor each phase of your healing journey, knowing each has its purpose in your spiritual growth. And always remember, you're not alone on this journey. Your soul chose to experience this because it knew you had the inner resources to not only survive it but thrive through it. The universe didn't give you a lesson you weren't capable of learning, a pain you weren't strong enough to endure, an opportunity for growth you weren't brave enough to embrace. The person who left your life may never know the gift they gave you. They may never understand that by leaving, they initiated an awakening that changed your life forever. But you know, and your soul knows, and that's what matters. Looking back in a few years, it won't be their presence you cherish most, but the strength you discovered in their absence. It won't be the love they gave you that fills you with pride, but the self-love you developed when they were gone. It won't be the happiness you shared that marks you most deeply, but the peace you found within yourself when you were alone. And then you'll understand, with crystal clarity, that they didn't leave to hurt you, they left to liberate you, not to reject you, but to force you to accept yourself, not to abandon you, but to teach you to never abandon yourself again. This is the deepest truth Edgar Cayce left us about relationships. They don't exist to complete us, but to awaken us to our own completeness, not to give us what we lack, but to show us that we never lacked anything, not to fill our voids, but to teach us that emptiness is also sacred, because it's the space where the new is born. So as you continue processing this experience, remember you're exactly where you need to be, feeling exactly what you need to feel, learning exactly what your soul came here to learn, and becoming exactly who you were always destined to be. The person who left was just the catalyst. You are both the alchemist and the gold being purified. And when the process is complete,
you will shine with a light no one can ever extinguish, because it comes from within, from the inexhaustible source of your own being. And then you'll understand that they didn't disappear, they simply fulfilled their mission and quietly withdrew, as all true teachers do when the student is ready to fly solo. Your soul always knew this. Now finally, your heart knows it too.